There are places in this world that stand untouched, abandoned, and forgotten. Not because time has claimed them, but because something darker was lurking. Something that waits, hidden, behind the scenes of what we call reality. These are places where the line between life and death blurs, where echoes of the past refuse to rest. What drives people to stay away? Is it the stories of those who entered and never came back? Or the warnings etched into stone by the brave who dared to escape? Tonight, we'll unravel the mystery behind 5 cursed locations you should never visit after dark. Their stories are not just chilling, they are real. Are you ready to face the darkness? If you think you can handle it, hit the like button and stay until the end. But be warned, what you'll see tonight may change the way you look at the world forever. Let's begin. The Silent Asylum. At the edge of a forgotten town, there stands a place, untouched by time, but scarred by something far worse. Known to locals as the Silent Asylum, this crumbling fortress once housed the mentally ill, the lost, and discarded. Its walls have seen despair, pain, and a darkness so deep that even the bravest avoid it after sunset. Constructed in the late 1800s, this is Silent Asylum. This wall has seen discarded at the windows of a night sky like no other. But soon after its opening, rumors began to swirl. Patients reported screams echoing in the night. Screams they claimed didn't come from any of them. Staff whispered about shadows moving where no one stood, and rooms that would turn freezing cold for no reason. By the 1930s, the asylum's reputation had darkened. Stories of inhumane treatments surfaced. Patients strapped to beds for days, experimental surgeries, and even deaths that were quietly swept under the rug. When it was finally shuttered in the 1970s, no one dared to look back. Yet, those who have entered its doors since speak of horrors far beyond anything human hands could create. One investigator, drawn by curiosity, decided to document what lay within. Armed with a camera and a few close friends, they stepped into the asylum under the cover of night. What began as a simple exploration quickly turned into a harrowing experience they would never forget. The group entered the main hall, where the air felt oppressively heavy, as if the building itself was watching them. It started innocently enough, looking like a silence. But then came the whispers. Faint at first, almost like the building was breathing. They chalked it up to the wind, but as they ventured deeper, the whispers grew louder, taking on a distinct tone. Words they couldn't quite make out, but that felt directed at them. As they turned a corner, one of the group members gasped, their flashlight frozen on an open doorway. There, just beyond the threshold, was a shadow. Tall and unmoving, it stood there for a moment before retreating into the darkness. Thinking it was another explorer, they called out. No answer. They followed cautiously, but the room beyond was empty, save for a child's doll sitting eerily on a chair. Then it happened. Doors began slamming in the distance, one by one, loud and deliberate, as if someone or something was hurting them. The air turned icy cold, and their breaths became visible, despite the warm summer night outside. Panic set in as they tried to find the exit, but the hallways seemed endless, twisting back on themselves like a maze. Finally, just as they spotted the faint glow of the exit sign, the investigator turned back for one last look. There, at the end of the hall, stood the shadowy figure once more, now much closer. Its head tilted unnaturally to one side, as if observing them. Without hesitation, they ran, bursting through the doors into the night, leaving behind their camera, which still recorded for another hour before shutting off on its own. When the footage was recovered days later, it revealed something chilling. Faint whispers could be heard throughout the recording. Whispers that didn't match any of the group's voices. And in the final moments, just before the camera turned off, there was a loud, bone-chilling scream that none of them remembered hearing. Was it all in their head? Or was something darker waiting for them in that asylum? To this day, the investigator refuses to speak of that night, claiming that whatever followed them home has never truly left. Would you dare step into this asylum at night? If you think you'd survive, comment below and tell us why. And don't forget to like this video if the thought of this place gave you chills. We're just getting started. Stay with us as we uncover even more cursed locations that should remain forgotten. The Forest That Whispers. Hidden deep within the heart of Japan lies a forest unlike any other. A place where silence doesn't just feel eerie, but oppressive. Known as Aokigahara, or the Sea of Trees, this sprawling woodland is as beautiful as it is deadly. Its labyrinth of twisted pathways and densely packed trees disorients even the most seasoned hikers, often leading them to vanish without a trace. Legends tell of restless spirits wandering the forest floor, tethered to the land by grief, anger, or something far worse. Locals speak in hushed tones of strange occurrences, sudden chills, unexplained voices calling from the shadows, and trees that appear to watch your every move. Many believe these are not just figments of imagination, but warnings, signs that something lies behind the scenes of the forest's eerie calm. Aokigahara is no ordinary forest. It has a reputation for being a gateway, a bridge between the world of the living and the dead. While many dismiss the stories as superstition, those who dare to enter often come out with tales that defy reason, if they come out at all. One summer evening, two friends, Sarah and Tom, decided to hike Aokigahara in search of adventure. They had heard the warnings, but dismissed them as urban legends, confident they could navigate the forest's trails. Equipped with a map, flashlights, and a sense of curiosity, they ventured into the Sea of Trees. At first, the forest seemed ordinary, but as they ventured deeper, the atmosphere changed. The chirping birds and rustling leaves gave way to an unnatural stillness. It was as if the forest itself was holding its breath, watching. They joked to shake off the unease, but their laughter seemed to die in the air, swallowed by the trees. It started with the footsteps. At first, they thought it was an echo of their own movements, but soon it became clear. Something was following them. Tom called out, expecting to see another hiker, but no one replied. The footsteps stopped when they stopped, and resumed when they did. Whatever it was staying just out of sight. Then they began to notice the symbols, carved into tree trunks, The markings were unlike anything they had seen before. Twisted shapes and patterns that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. Sarah took photos, but her camera malfunctioned, capturing only static-filled images. The deeper they went, the more frequent the carvings became, as if guiding them somewhere. As dusk settled, they found themselves completely lost. The map they had relied on made no sense anymore, and the trails seemed to vanish. That's when they saw it. A faint glow in the distance. Thinking it might be a way out or another hiker, they approached cautiously. What they saw chilled them to the core. Standing in a small clearing was a figure bathed in an unnatural light. It didn't move, didn't acknowledge them, but its presence was overwhelming. The air grew thick, making it hard to breathe, and a low, guttural voice seemed to echo in their heads, though neither could understand the words. Panic set in, and they turned to run, but the forest had other plans. The trees seemed to close in around them, branches clawing at their clothes and faces. The glowing figure didn't pursue them, but its presence lingered, as if it was watching from every shadow. Finally, after what felt like hours of frantic running, they stumbled out of the forest, breathless and shaken. When they looked back, the trees stood as still and silent as ever, as though nothing had happened. But Sarah and Tom knew better. The symbols, the whispers, and the glowing figure weren't just figments of their imagination. There were warnings, reminders that Aokigahara is a place where the living are not welcome. What was the glowing figure they encountered? A restless spirit, a guardian of the forest, or something far more ancient and unexplainable? And what do the symbols mean? The answers remain, lost in the shadows of the sea of trees. Did you catch it? Go back and watch carefully. Look closely at the trees in the background. Did you see the shadow move? Let us know in the comments what you think Sarah and Tom encountered that night. And if this story gave you chills, don't forget to like and subscribe. There are still more cursed locations to uncover, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. The Curse Hotel Room. Nestled in the heart of the Rockies, this historic hotel has been a destination for travelers seeking luxury and escape. But behind its ornate walls and glittering chandeliers lies a secret, one that its staff rarely speaks of, and its guests never forget. Room 1408, a suite infamous for unexplained phenomena, has been the site of countless chilling experiences. Guests who have stayed in room 1408 report the unexplainable. Lights flickering at random, whispers that seem to come from inside the walls, and objects moving on their own. Some even wake up to find fresh scratches on their skin. For decades, the hotel has fielded complaints, but when guests demand answers, they're often met with silence or a knowing look from the staff. Tonight, we'll recount the story of a young couple who dared to spend a night in this cursed room, unaware of the horrors that awaited them. Their experience became one of the most terrifying accounts ever documented within the hotel's walls. It was supposed to be a romantic getaway. Mark and Jessica had heard of the hotel's charm, but knew nothing of its dark reputation. When the front desk clerk handed them the key to room 1408, they noticed a fleeting look of concern, but brushed it off. The room itself was unassuming, with vintage decor and a view of the mountains. But from the moment they stepped inside, something felt off. Jessica mentioned feeling an immediate chill, though the heater was on. Mark dismissed it as nerves, but then the lights began to flicker, At first, it seemed like a typical electrical issue, but the flickering grew erratic, almost rhythmic, as if in response to their movements. Mark joked about the hotel needing an electrician, but Jessica couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't alone. As the night wore on, the disturbances escalated. While unpacking, Jessica noticed her suitcase had shifted from the bed to the floor. Mark swore he hadn't touched it. Then came the voices, faint, almost imperceptible at first, but unmistakably human. They seemed to be coming from the corner of the room, near an antique armchair. Jessica froze when she saw it. A shadowy figure sitting in the chair, its head tilted slightly, as if watching them. Mark saw nothing at first, but Jessica's panic convinced him to approach the chair. When he reached out, the shadow vanished, leaving the chair cold to the touch. They tried to laugh it off, blaming fatigue, but neither could shake the growing sense of unease. At midnight, they were jolted awake by a loud crash. The lamp beside the bed had fallen, though it had been securely placed hours earlier. Jessica turned on the light, only to find that the room looked different. The furniture had been rearranged while they slept. Chairs were stacked in bizarre formations, and the curtains were drawn tightly shut, though they had left them open. Mark decided they had had enough. They gathered their belongings and headed for the door, only to find it locked. The key, which had been left on the nightstand, was now missing. As they searched frantically, the whispers returned, louder this time, and joined by faint, mocking laughter. Finally, as Mark prepared to break the door down, it swung open on its own. They rushed into the hallway, hearts pounding, and headed straight to the front desk. But what the staff told them left them speechless. According to the staff, no one had stayed in room 1408 for months, not since the last incident, which involved another couple leaving in a similar state of panic. What's more, the key they had been given didn't belong to room 1408 at all. It was for a room on a completely different floor. The hotel's manager simply shrugged, saying, "Sometimes the room chooses its guests." Mark and Jessica never returned to the hotel, and to this day they refuse to speak of what happened during those hours. But the room remains available for those brave enough to try their luck. So, would you dare spend a night in room 1408? If you think you could handle a night in room 1408, leave a comment below. But if this story gave you chills, hit that thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe. Our next cursed location might just be the most terrifying yet. The Haunted Bridge. Tucked away in a forgotten corner of the country, there exists a bridge with a tragic past. Known to locals as Crybaby Bridge, this haunted landmark has been the site of countless unsettling occurrences, drawing both the curious and the brave. It's a place where ghostly cries fill the night air, cries that are said to be the lingering echoes of a long-lost mother and her child. The legend of Crybaby Bridge dates back over a century, to a time when a young mother, devastated by the loss of her baby, took her own life near the bridge's dark waters. Since that day, visitors have reported hearing the cries of an infant, accompanied by the unnerving sensation of an unseen presence reaching out from the shadows. But is this simply folklore, or something far more terrifying at work here? Tonight, we'll take you to Crybaby Bridge, where a group of teenagers dared to visit after dark, and what they encountered left them questioning everything they thought they knew about the supernatural. It was a typical Friday night when a group of 4 friends, Zach, Emily, Mark, and Laura, decided to visit Crybaby Bridge. Having heard the stories, they weren't exactly sure what to expect, but they knew one thing for certain. This would be a night to remember. Arriving at the bridge just past midnight, the group felt an eerie sense of stillness in the air, far beyond what the cold night should have brought. It was as if the world had fallen silent. The only sound was the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind and the distant gurgle of the river below. As they stood at the edge of the bridge, they heard it, the faintest sound, almost like a whimpering cry. Emily froze, her heart skipping a beat. Zach, trying to brush it off, joked about it being an animal, but the others didn't find it funny. The cries were getting louder, more distinct, like a baby's desperate sobbing, rising from below the bridge. Zach, determined to prove there was nothing to be afraid of, dared the group to walk further onto the bridge, but as they took each step, the air grew colder, and the cries seemed to follow them, echoing in the night. It was then that they felt it, the sensation of cold hands brushing against their backs, pushing them toward the edge of the bridge. At first, they thought it was just the wind or their imaginations running wild, but the sensation became stronger, like something unseen was guiding them. Laura, who was standing closest to the railing, felt a strong pressure against her shoulders, as if someone was trying to shove her into the water below. Her scream broke the silence, and the others quickly grabbed her, pulling her back from the edge. Then they saw something that none of them could explain. Floating just below the bridge, glowing orbs of light began to materialize. They hovered just above the water, moving in a slow, deliberate pattern. The lights flickered, casting long shadows against the bridge and the surrounding trees. Mark, who had always been the skeptic, reached out toward one of the glowing orbs. But as his fingers got closer, the orb abruptly vanished, leaving only a cold gust of wind in its place. Suddenly, the cries of the baby grew louder, more frantic, as if in warning. The group quickly realized they had overstayed their welcome. As the group fled the bridge, they could hear the cries growing fainter, but the cold, unseen hands continued to follow them, pushing, pulling, urging them to leave. When they finally made it back to their car, the cries had stopped, but the strange energy in the air remained, haunting them long after the night ended. But what did they leave behind on Crybaby Bridge? Some say the spirits of the bridge choose their victims carefully, and not everyone is allowed to leave unscathed. What happened to the group of teenagers that night? And why have some of them reported strange, inexplicable occurrences in the days that followed? Do you believe the legend of Crybaby Bridge? Was it the spirits of the lost mother and her child, or something darker? Comment below with your thoughts. Have you experienced something like this? Or do you think it's all just a tale to frighten the curious? The ghost town that screams. Some places are abandoned for reasons that no one can truly understand. A disaster, be it natural or man-made, leaves behind more than just ruins. It leaves memories. Memories that can't be forgotten. This ghost town, once home to thousands, was deserted overnight, and it's been left to rot ever since. It sits in eerie silence, haunted by the restless spirits of those who never got to leave. Today, this town remains a desolate place, ignored by the outside world, but never truly empty. The haunting of Pripyat, near Chernobyl, serves as a grim reminder of the price paid when catastrophe strikes. Those who dare visit often report hearing the distant laughter of phantom children, strange moving shadows, and even eerie, familiar music that seems to come from nowhere. But for one lone explorer, a late-night visit to this cursed place would turn into a terrifying ordeal that would stay with them for the rest of their life. Alex, a seasoned explorer and urban adventurer, had heard the stories of Pripyat. Many had ventured into this forsaken town, documenting its ghostly legends, but few had ventured as deep as Alex. Armed with only a camera and flashlight, Alex set out one evening to uncover the truth for themselves. Alex set out one evening to uncover the truth for themselves. As Alex stepped inside the rusted gates of the town, they immediately felt a sense of unease. The air was thick with silence, broken only by the occasional rustling of leaves. Buildings stood empty, their windows dark, like the hollow eyes of a forgotten corpse. There was no sign of life, no animals, no sounds, just the oppressive weight of abandonment. Moving further into the town, Alex came across a decaying school building. The door creaked open as they pushed it, and inside, the air was cold. The floorboards groaned under their feet as they ventured deeper into the forgotten hallways. As they explored, Alex came across something peculiar. Graffiti scrawled on the walls in bright, almost desperate red. It read, "Leave now," though Alex knew the town had been abandoned for years. This message seemed fresh. It read, "Leave now." Though Alex knew the town had been abandoned for years, this message seemed unfamiliar. Unnerved but determined to press on, Alex continued. But it wasn't long before they began to hear something they couldn't explain. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate steps, echoing through the empty hallways, following their every move. The footsteps grew louder and more distinct as Alex moved through the building, and soon they realized they weren't alone. The building felt colder now, the temperature dropping dramatically. Alex spun around but saw nothing. They moved faster, but the footsteps followed. Every turn brought the same unsettling sound. Someone was walking just behind them, but no one was there. Alex ran from the school and into the surrounding streets, where something even stranger awaited. Middle of the road. The figure was faint, like a ghost, illuminated by a strange, otherworldly glow. Alex froze, heart racing. The figure didn't move. Yet it seemed to draw closer with every passing second. Their flashlight flickered, and for a split second, the figure disappeared, only to reappear even closer. It was the shape of a person, but there was no face, no details, just an outline of light, like something caught between two worlds. Terrified, Alex turned and ran as fast as they could. They didn't look back, but the strange feeling of being watched never left them. The footsteps, the graffiti, the glowing figure, they were all warnings. Warnings of something ancient and restless, still trapped within the walls of the abandoned town. Alex made it out of Pripyat that night, but they weren't the same. The haunting sounds, the unexplained phenomena, and the ominous warning stayed with them long after they left. Was it all in Alex's mind, or did something truly follow them from the cursed town? To this day, Alex hasn't returned, and neither has anyone else. But Pripyat remains empty, waiting. Alex was definitely more interested in me, but those are the two things I didn't want to think about at this stage in my life. The question still resonates. Do you really want to know what's behind the veil of mystery? Asked Pripyat, waiting for the reply. Are cursed? What really lurks in places like Pripyat? Share your theories in the comments below. Maybe you know of other ghost towns that should be on this list. These cursed locations, they are more than just relics of the past. They are places of torment and fear, where the echoes of tragedy linger and the living are never quite alone. But what is it that makes these places so terrifying? Is it truly the restless spirits that haunt them? Or do they hold something darker? Something beyond our understanding? Something we dare not face? What if these locations are not just cursed by those who have died, but by something older, something more powerful, something we cannot even begin to comprehend? Perhaps there are truths hidden in these places, waiting for those brave or foolish enough to discover them. And while these cursed locations may leave you questioning everything, next time we'll uncover something even more chilling: the world's most haunted artifacts. These relics, lost to time and darkness, have histories that will send shivers down your spine. Objects that were never meant to be touched, let alone studied. Make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell, because you won't want to miss what we have in store for you. Some things are better left untouched, but we're gonna touch them anyway. Thanks for watching. Dare to return? Until next time, remember, don't stay out too late. Some doors are better left unopened.